I'm Kevin O'Hara for Alcohol Mastery, and this is the Alcohol Mastery Podcast, Session 8. Okay, so if you can, I'm doing this one while I'm out walking again. I just think, geez, sitting there in front of the computer can be sometimes boring, and one of the things that I really like about walking, and I talk about it a lot, is it just gives me a chance to think and run through things in my own head. So you'll have to put up with a bit less quality, but hopefully you get more out of it. I was going to do some more book reviews this week, but when I listened back to last week's, I thought it was just boring, so I'm not going to do any more of them. I'll do the odd book review maybe at the end of a podcast, just to talk about, because I think it's important to read as many different self-help books, and just put your mind into that place as often as you can. Another aspect of that I really wanted to sort of say that I do is I don't listen to news at all. I think it's the opposite of getting your head into a good place. Is the news and soap operas and all that kind of stuff just put your head into a bad place. It's really negative thinking, and I haven't watched the news now for a long time. The last time I actually watched any news for a lengthy period of time was, I'd say 2001, was the Twin Towers going down. And that was when something like that happened. You're sort of you can't help but watch because of the magnitude of the thing, but so really I haven't watched a lot of news since then. I just don't like that repetitious thing. I think people are there to sensationalise often very minor things compared to some of the things that are going on in the world, and there's nothing I can do about it personally. I think if people want to do something about it, I think they should do. But there's nothing you can do about it just by listening to the news. And you're not going to be, in my opinion, you're not going to be that well informed about what's happening in the world just by listening to CNN or Sky News. I mean, that's the one that I used to watch, Sky News. So, but that's another story. I mean, the main thing that with the self-help stuff is that you're feeding your mind on positivity. Not all self-help books are going to be the same. You're not going to find help in a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff is repetitive. You hear the same advice over and over again, just wrapped up in different packaging. But in general, if you can listen to this positivity over and over, and it sort of pushes you to believe in yourself and your own abilities to do these things, then I think that is the essence. There's only so much that anybody else can do for you. You can go to therapists, you can go to doctors, you can go to psychiatrists, or whatever it is. You can come here, listen to the videos. But if somebody's not teaching you how to help yourself, the old story about give the man a fish and you feed him for a day, give him a rod and teach him how to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. And it's exactly the same thing. If you give somebody a pill, or give somebody a drink, and it solves their problem for that moment because they don't think about it anymore. But you tell somebody how to deal with the problems, teach them how to do it, and how to do it from their inside out, then you not only allow them to deal with that problem, that habit, that situation, you also give them the ability to deal with so many different situations in their life. You know, there are habits which are keystone habits. It's from a guy called Charles Duhigg. You know, whatever you want to call them, it's just a name. It's a cornerstone, it's a foundation habit that a lot of other stuff is built on. And drinking is one of those. You know, if you drink as a cornerstone habit, as a keystone habit, the more you drink, the more likely you are to have other habits which are mere branches off the first one. So you drink, a lot of drinkers smoke, for instance, and those two things are connected in that they, you know, one preceded the other. You know, maybe I started smoking before I started drinking, and once I knew that I could smoke and it wasn't going to kill me and that it would make me look a bit tougher, you know, I suppose as a 9-year-old, when you've got a cigarette sticking out of your mouth, then you do look tougher to another 9-year-old who is looking at you with horror and thinking, what the hell are you doing? So it was easy for me to get onto alcohol then. But I mean, even smaller habits. So, you know, when you're drinking and you're getting drunk a lot and you just can't be arsed cooking, you're more tempted to go out and eat fast food. And once you start that game, you know, you've just another cornerstone habit then, which can lead on to other bad habits. I talked about good habits being a part of people's lives just the same as bad habits. One cornerstone habit is, one good cornerstone habit is exercise. So once you stick to it and you get regular exercise, you tend to start thinking about other ways that you can improve your life. You know, once you're feeling the benefits of the exercise. Excuse me, I'm just going up a hill here. Once you feel the benefits of exercise and you start to feel how good it makes you feel, you know, you do start to think, well, maybe if I cut this thing out of my diet or added this other thing, maybe if I cut down on the booze, stop drinking as much, you know, these are all things that can affect each other. You know, this goes back to something I was talking about a couple of weeks ago, and that's one of the benefits of stopping drinking is that you stop being a burden on your community. You know, we have to take responsibility for ourselves. You know, when you delegate that responsibility for your health to somebody else, that's when people start, you know, it's easy for somebody to give you a pill. I mean, that's all they're going to do, because nobody can actually do the work for you. You know, they can't, no matter how much money you've got, you can't pay somebody else to get you fit. You know, you could be the richest person on the planet, but if you're overweight, you can buy all the machines that you want, but you cannot pay anybody else to actually run on the machine, or, you know, do the moves on the cross trainer, or attend a yoga class for you for an hour. You know, or you can pay them to do that, but it's not going to have any direct benefit to you. It's the problem with rich people and liposuction, for instance. You know, they don't know what the procedure is. They have the fat sucked out of them, but it doesn't deal with the underlying problem, which is the food that the person is putting into their body in the first place to get themselves overweight. So the problem is going to keep recurring over and over again until they address that problem. So, you know, we live in a big drug culture where pharmaceutical companies are making billions because we want a quick fix without us actually doing any of the work. So we want to be able to go down to our doctor and say, look, doc, I've got this wrong with me, that wrong with me, had this problem, had that problem. What can you do for me, you know? And I mean, what the hell can a doctor do for you except prescribe you with a pill? I mean, he can say to you exactly the same thing that I'm saying. Is like, well, you know, for real long-term results in this, you've got to change your way of living. You've got to change these things about yourself. But all change takes a long time to come about, and there is no big gratification. You know, there's no immediate gratification like you do get from a pill or from a drink. So, you know, that all that advice is going to fall onto deaf ears. But a good doctor will say it to you. You know, even at the same time as he's giving you the pills, he will say, well, look, you know, you've really got to, if you want this to disappear in the long term, you've got to change your diet. You've got to get out and get exercise. You know, I was thinking about that this morning. I was going back over the Stop Drinking Alcohol book, because somebody was saying there was a few mistakes in it, which I hadn't picked up. And I was reading, there's a section in it which sort of talks about the few days when I quit, and it wasn't really one decision. You know, it was sort of, I was making the decision over quite a while, over a few months, that it was brewing up. You know, just things were starting to happen, and how Esther was working a lot of nights, and she was in Ireland, but I used to go out a lot more there, whereas here I wasn't going out. I was staying in the house and I was drinking at home, and you know, that kind of stuff can only last so long. And the more I was drinking, the more, you know, I didn't have my son around me, you know, so the more lonely I was getting, the more depressed I was getting. So all that kind of stuff was building up to this. And then, you know, when we went out for that pub crawl, a few hours, you know, 3 or 4 hours, and we sort of had this little tussle on the beach, you know, after the pub, and it was all very funny at the time. It was all like wrestling, and see he was saying if he, you know, him at 21, he was obviously full of power, and me, I was sort of, my back was aching, and you know, I was getting more and more into an old fella, you know, with, you know, especially with all the damage that I was doing with the alcohol. So it was maybe a mixture of machoism and a lot of drink. But anyway, long story short, he dropped his iPhone out of his pocket, his iPod out of his pocket that he'd just got in Ireland, and didn't see it, obviously, in a dark beach, 1 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock, whatever it was. And I remember sat there on the balcony the next morning, and it was cold, and I was wrapped up in a blanket, and I was just watching him walking backwards and forwards and he was as hungover as I was. And as he's plodding backwards and forwards with his head down to the sand, searching for this bloody thing, and I just felt such a crappy dad, you know. I don't know how I got into this part, but anyway, it's responsibility. And it really did. I mean, my own idea about the whole thing was to, you know, my idea of being a father was, I always thought that, you know, that I was a good father. But as I was sat there watching him that morning, I sort of realized that there was a lot of things that I was doing in my life that, just from a do as I say and not as I do standpoint, that were not good, you know, that weren't from the perspective of a good father. And I tell you, that broke my heart. You know, it was, really, seriously. I mean, if you could take everything out of my life, apart from my life, obviously, and still left me with my son, I'd be still a happy man. It's, you know, it's just, my son means everything to me. You know, my partner is almost there, but, you know, we've gone through some tough times, me and Sean, and yeah. So anyway, it wasn't at that moment that I made up my mind that I was going to quit drinking, but it started a lot of questions. It started me questioning so many things about myself, and especially about my drinking. And it started, you know, this ball rolling of, you know, was I an alcoholic? And I said it to him, and he said, "No, you're not an alcoholic." And, you know, and I have to agree with him. You know, like, alcoholic, as the word means, I wasn't there of getting up in the morning and drinking, but I definitely was an alcoholic in the sense of a lot of my life revolved around alcohol. But the real one single moment of sanity, and the one thing that made me make the decision and force the decision and made it easy for me, was when he'd gone home, and I just sat there feeling lonely, and thinking, is this the way that every time I see him now we're just going to be pissed? You know, is this what's going to happen? Because I spent so much of that Christmas with him. I can't remember if he was over for a week or 10 days, but I spent so much of that week with him, either drinking or recovering. You know, so we did drink every day, and once we started drinking, it was like, oh, you have another beer, celebrating, you know, come on. And that one realization, that what was facing our relationship was that any time I saw him from now on, it was going to be that drinking. You know, once I knew that, I knew that's not what I wanted. You know, I couldn't deal with my life like that. Once I started thinking along those lines, I really started thinking about all the times in the past, when all the memories of my past that I haven't got. You know, this important stuff to think about in your own life, because it's only by digging deep and getting down to the emotional thing, and what really gets your emotions going, that you can truly find the determination to quit. Because as soon as I understood that about myself, I thought, yeah, fuck that. There's no way I'm going to do that, you know. And the older I got, the more effect the alcohol would have on me, and the more effect it would have on Sean. And if I was going to do anything about it, it had to be now. So that was it, you know. And it took me a long time afterwards to realise exactly what had happened. You know, this didn't happen. This realisation didn't happen there and then. All this was going on in the subconscious, in my subconscious, and you know, from that perspective, it is so important for you to try and to start the ball rolling in your conscious mind, because once you start that, then everything else underneath you know, a lot of stuff happens underneath without you knowing it. Your brain will figure these things out. I mean, there was a special part of your thinking system which, when something is not working for you, it'll start firing out all these alternatives, and some of the alternatives will be crazy, you know. I mean, you'll think, if you've ever got yourself into a sort of a cul-de-sac, you know, a dead end in your life where you don't know you know, you're stuck and you can't figure out how to move along, and whatever way you do it, you talk to other people about it, or you read books or listen to tapes or whatever, and your mind will start to cycle through possible solutions to your problem. You know, some of them might be completely mad, you know. If you're having problems, you've got a big argument and you're having problems in a relationship, you know, one of the first things that might pop up is, I'm going to leave, I'm going to do this, I'm going to run off. I've thought several times, I used to think a lot when I was young of, I'm going to run off and join the army. I even thought about the Foreign Legion at one stage, you know. And as ludicrous as that sounds, and you will put them, you know, you put a lot of these things onto that pile, that ludicrous pile, and go, yeah, that's a lot of shit. But that's how you start thinking about stuff. And the more information you can put into your mind, into the subconscious, you know, even if you don't think you're getting a lot of benefit out of it, the more ammunition, the more, what would you call it, fertilizer that you give into your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind is the part of your system that is responsible for a lot of this mulching up of the information and trying to push out some logical solutions. It's exactly the same way as learning a language works. It's I can't remember what they call it. There's a that you can recite words over and over and over again, but they won't come to you. But if you use them and you listen, a lot of the words that you're listening to, you learn the language by listening to the tone, and your subconscious mind is learning all this. So your subconscious mind is learning. When I learned Spanish for the first time, and you know, like I'm not proficient, but I can have sort of a conversation now. And when I first, if you don't understand Spanish and you listen to a Spaniard talking, especially a Spaniard in Spain, it just sounds like it's just like a machine gun going off. And I knew some Spanish when I came here, but as soon as I started listening to people, I couldn't get the words because it was all like one noise. But by listening to it, osmosis is the name. I just thought of it. Osmosis. And by listening, even if you're not actively learning anything, your mind is breaking down the sounds, the tones, the pauses. All this kind of stuff is all happening underneath the surface, and it takes a while for it to, you know, there's got to be a lot of information going in. So they say that, you know, the more Spanish TV, the more you can listen to Spaniards talking, the quicker you'll learn because of this process of osmosis. Same thing as what I was talking about earlier on about the self-help books and the self-help courses. The more you can listen to people talking about positivity and talking about telling you, you can do it, you can do this, believe in yourself, the more you will actually believe that you can do it. And unfortunately, watching the news and watching negative soap operas, we have a soap opera in England. If English and Irish people will get this one, it's EastEnders. Now, if you're an EastEnders fan, I'm sorry, but that to me seems to be 95% misery and 5%, I wouldn't even call it happiness, I don't know. It's a long time since I've listened to it, so it might have changed, but I doubt it, because those shows thrive on misery. Who would want to live in a place like that? But this, if you've that negative thinking will cancel out a lot of the positive stuff that you're putting in, because you're confusing your mind. Your mind is thinking, well, what am I supposed to be doing with this, Which way am I supposed to be thinking? So, let me know what you think of this type of podcast, whether you can understand me. I don't know if I'm talking too quickly, or whether my diction is there, whether you can understand what I'm saying, or whether you prefer... I've got a better microphone at home, so the sound is much clearer, but I always feel like I always feel the topic, the content is better when I'm outside. I think my mind just flows freer when I'm outside. Now, maybe that's not a good thing for you, so let me know, which one you would prefer, because, to be honest, these ones for me are a lot better. I don't want to, I feel that there's a place for all things. I think some people need the more structured. I'm going to do some structured videos next year. I've bought some lights, and I'm going to do some courses. I was asked by an online place called Udemy to do some online courses, so I'm going to do those after Christmas, and I think a lot of you guys will benefit from those as well. But they're basically going to be sort of follow a similar theme to the books, except in video, and then probably have some exercises at the end. But I love this. This for me is, apart from, I'm looking forward to doing some more interviews, get some guests on. And for those, definitely have to be at home. I can't do those when I'm out walking, but I feel when I'm doing them on my own at home in the office, it just feels very stilted, and I don't know, it seems boring to me. Maybe it's because I'm looking at the four walls. I'm projecting that out onto you guys, but yeah, let me know. So I don't know. If there's anything you want me to talk about, especially during the podcasts, I mean, I have a lot of stuff now lined up for the next video. So if you've got things that you want me to talk about in the videos and sort of ramble on about, then, or in the podcast, I should say, not the video, then let me know. If there's any questions you want me to answer, the same thing. Just send me an email to kevin@alcoholmastery.com, and you can always come over and wherever you want to leave a message, just leave a message there. There's plenty of places where you can contact me, and you all know them by now. So that's about it. I'm nearly sort of halfway through the walk, and now I'm going to go back up hills, so I don't think I'm going to be able to talk from now on. So Until next time, I'm Kevin O'Hara for Alcohol Mastery. Onwards and upwards.